Okay, debaters, we're going to talk today about public forum debate. We're going to talk about how it's different from Lincoln Douglas debate, and we're going to talk about some key strategies for you to get prepared. First of all, you need to understand that this does not work the same way as LD. Instead of affirmative and negative, we have the pro that supports the resolution, and we have con that attacks the resolution. Now, why do we use different words? Because this debate is organized in a very different way. With the toss of a coin, we're going to decide who this first speaker is going to be. And they will be speaking. The first speaker may not be speaking in the the first speaker may not be speaking in the pro side of the debate. The con can speak first in this debate. Now, that's very different from affirmative and negative in LD, and it makes a big difference in how you might structure your arguments. So you've got to think strategically with Lincoln or with public forum debate that you don't have to think that way so much in LD. A coin is tossed, and the winner will get to pick first, either the side or the speaking order that they want. So they can decide that they want to be pro, and then the loser gets to decide if they're going to be the first speaker or the second speaker. This allows both sides to have their preference in how they're going to run the debate. Let's look at how this debate is organized. Team A is going to be the first speaker, regardless of whether or not they're speaking pro or con. They're going to be renamed Team A and Team B in how we score this. So Team A first speaker is going to give a 4-minute constructive / opening speech. Then Team B's first speaker will give their constructive opening speech also for 4 minutes. And then we have a crossfire. Now, crossfire is not like cross examinations or CX because both teams get to ask and answer questions. In this case, Team B will ask the first question in this 3-minute crossfire. Then we have 2 rebuttals, one by Team A and one by Team B, but each of these is done by the second speaker, 4 minutes each. Now, the rebuttals need to not only attack the opponent's speech, but they also need to start introducing their own defense. How are they supporting their case? Now, during rebuttals, you do not get to introduce any more arguments. You can bring in more supporting evidence, but no new arguments. So you can't suddenly start talking about the 21st century cases of how the Electoral College overturned the national popular vote if it was not brought up by the first speaker. After the 2 rebuttal speeches are given, we have again a crossfire. Team B will get to ask the first question. Then the first speaker comes back from Team A and gives a summary of the cases. And they support their own, they attack the other. They try to put together a grand overview of the case. Now, in this format, we see a lot of dropped arguments. This isn't as big a deal in this format as it is in Lincoln Douglas, but it's very important that you give a strong summary that indicates to the judge why the judge should be voting for that side. Then we go into Grand Crossfire. Grand Crossfire is the funniest thing ever. I sit and laugh through most of it. That makes it look like I'm not taking it seriously. I really am, but I just think the whole talking over each other and asking these questions leads to logical fallacies. It leads to goofy questions. So you need to go in prepared. Instead, and we'll talk about how the strategy for that should work. The last 2 speeches are final focus. That is the key voting issue presentation that's done by the second speaker of each team. And then this debate is done. There is only 2 minutes per team for prep. So you've got to be very careful in how you use it. Be very strategic. How does PF differ from LD? First, there's no morality. There's no value criterion framework. You had to try to link each one of your constructive arguments, each of your contentions back to the framework. That doesn't apply here. This is a topical resolution. That means it's something that's on a lot of people's mind, and you have to be very careful that what you are using for sources is a good source, a reliable source. Wikipedia can lead you to reliable sources, but at the same time, especially with the Electoral College becoming an issue in the upcoming election, because somebody in the state of Ohio wants to eliminate the Electoral College vote in the state of Ohio if it differs from the national popular vote. This is a big issue right now in the state of Ohio. You're going to find a lot of people talking. You've got to be careful that you are using good sources. So be very specific and very cautious about who you pick. There's the shorter prep time. I mentioned this before. You've only got 2 minutes. Now, why is this important? Well, because you've got two speakers. When one speaker is speaking, the other speaker could be flowing, but they also could be getting prepared for their next speech. So how you use your time is very strategic. Remember, it's pro versus con, not af versus neg. And this is important because the first speaker might not be pro. First speaker could be con, which makes this speech, or makes this debate a little bit more complicated. These debates focus on solutions, not on morality. It's not whether something should or shouldn't be done. It's whether or not this solution solves this problem that the debate resolution brings up. The debate focus is on solutions, not on morality. So if you're going to talk about how it's right for us to do this, you're doing it wrong. Remember, we're looking at change. We're not looking at morality. Change versus no change. This is the risk that we are generally talking about in public forum debate. We have to examine the reasons for the change or the reasons not to change. We need to look at evidence. We need to look at examples, and we need to look at the impact of this change or not change will have. With the Electoral College vote being what we're going to be arguing, there are currently a lot of examples of it out there. I just learned about another one today about President Lincoln. Be careful, though, that when you talk about your impact, that you don't go into a logical fallacy talking about a slippery slope. You need to talk about what the impact was in the past and how we may or may not be able to expect that to happen in the future. This is a link over here. Is a great resource that was published by the National Forensic League, which is now called the National Speech and Debate Organization. Really good reference. That will be in the rockspeechclass.net homework assignment for today. Remember, links to the value and value criterion do not apply in public forum debate. Logic and reasons do. So I want you to be very careful about how you put together your speech. I'm introducing you to a new concept now. This is called the warrant. A warrant is an explanation of the reasons why the evidence that you provide relates to the claim. Now, a number of you had the assumption that I was going to be able to follow your reasoning because it was so clear to you that X leads to Y leads to Z. You can't make that assumption in debate. You have to give it all to the judge. Now, this is going to be one of those things that you're going to have to learn to work into your constructive speech and into your rebuttals. Make it very, very clear why the judge should be voting for your side. That is called the use of a warrant. Now, think about a warrant for the arrest. Technically, what a warrant for the arrest is it's an explanation to a judge why this person should be arrested. It lays out every reason and every suspicion by the police officer, and the judge looks at that and says, "Yes, they have good cause that to," and they will issue the warrant. Once again, these are the believable reasons why a claim and evidence are true. So think about your claims and your evidence and explain how they're linked back to your solution for your uh, contention. Don't assume that the judge is going to follow your thoughts. Explain your reasons. Let's talk about crossfires for a minute. Crossfire is cross examination, but both sides that ask and answer questions. Team B's speakers will always ask the first questions, but um, that doesn't mean that Team A's speaker doesn't get to ask questions. They do. They just need to answer it and then ask another question in return. Now, if people get rude in this or start dominating it, this is seen as a drawback in public forum debate. You want to make sure that you're not doing that. In Grand Crossfire, all 4 debaters will be sitting in a row asking their questions. Anybody can answer it. So if first speaker is asking a question, Teams B speaker 2 can answer it. It's whoever's got the information. And we want this to be quick, but we don't want it to be disrespectful, and we don't want shouting, and we don't want anybody throwing chairs. The summary speech is where speaker 1 puts everything together, all the arguments and all the answers to attacks, and the summary of the attacks on the opposing team's arguments. The final focus is the key voting issue presentation to the judge. This is where you lay it out to the judge. Judge, you need to be aware that this person used this argument and it's a logical fallacy. Judge, you need to be aware that we have proven our case because XYZ. This is where you put it all out. This is a short debate, so keep your speeches tight. Now, I've just introduced to you a new part of claim warrant or claim evidence impact by introducing warrants. So you need to be very concise in how you're giving your presentation. Both speakers need to understand the entire case. Just because speaker 1 on team A is only doing the constructive doesn't mean that speaker 2 doesn't have to understand the constructive. They've got to be able to argue it and support it. So write your cases together. One of the 2 of you is going to be a clearer, faster speaker. That one person should be your first speaker. The best at putting together summaries should speak last, because that final focus is a very important speech, and you need somebody who can put it all together very logically. Agree on how you're going to use the prep time before you ask for it. If you decide that you want to have prep time before the crossfires, then you ask for it. Don't expect the other team to ask for it. If you would prefer to have your time before your rebuttal speeches, that's up to you. You use it the way you want it, but don't let your partner hang out there with no prep time in case they need it before the final focus. Be respectful in the crossfire. This is really important, because if you're not respectful, I can shut it down. So don't be calling each other names. Don't be shouting at each other. Be respectful. This information in this presentation and the other presentations that I'm linking to, there's a PDF that I want you to download and read, and there is another YouTube format or YouTube video that I want you to watch about public forum debate. This information will be covered in a test. So get ready, get prepared. This is a big test. It is a significant part of your grade. I want you to do well. We'll talk to you tomorrow.